Hi there. My name is Dr. Rock. That is spelled RAK and pronounced ROCK. And I am the lead physician founder of RAK Your Life. You can find me at RAK Your Life, RAKYOURLIFE.com. I'm a lifestyle medicine physician. I help people take control of their health so that they can live the life of their dreams. And welcome to my weekly live stream. So excited to have you here. If you're watching live, if you're watching recorded, welcome. And this live stream almost didn't happen today. Uh, I committed to myself and to you, my viewers, and my patients, and my audience, and my family. A few weeks ago, I said, I'm going to do this weekly live stream. I'm going to do a live stream every week. And then this morning, I woke up and I said to myself, I don't feel like doing this today. And, don't we all have those moments, first of all? This is where my inspiration, because I'm still doing it, right? I'm here. If you're watching this, which, I'm actually doing this. So the title of this session, this stream is Your Feelings Will Betray You, How to Act Even When You Don't Feel Like It. Because what happened to me this morning is just very common. I think most of us uh, have well intentions. We have behaviors that we were well intentioned when we designed them, when we thought, I want to do this every day, I want to do this 3 times a week. And then there are those days when you just don't feel like doing it. And I'm not making excuses. I don't think but we often have a big list of reasons why. So for me, what I was like, it's a holiday week. People maybe not watch, you can come up with any reasons. There's some stressful things going on in my life, in our family. My wife shared on my newsletter and other in my podcast about how my wife has breast cancer and she's doing really well. And she has her last chemotherapy today. And so she is there right now. I don't think she's watching this. But if you are, no. Um, and that's a little anxiety provoking. She's doing really well, and that's a little anxiety provoking. So my mind has been on that. And I just didn't feel like this. I just didn't feel like then getting on my computer in front of and even setting up the stream and all the things I know how to do. Um, and then my daughter knocked on the door maybe an hour and a half ago. And there I am just actually sitting in bed. I'd gotten up for the day, but I kind of gotten back into bed and I was like, well, kind of thinking about my wife and she looks at me and she says, "What are you doing? Don't you have a event or something you're doing?" And I said, "Oh, my live stream." And she said, "Yeah, don't you have your live stream?" I said, "Oh, that's in a couple hours." She said, "Well, don't you have to get prepared and this that?" And I said, "I'm not really sure I'm going to do it today." And she looked at me, and this is the wisdom of a 12-year-old. She said, "Daddy, you have to do this if you want to be successful." And if you want to help people like you always say you do, then I think you have to do this. And I just looked at her. What wisdom does this 12-year-old have? Wow. That's exactly what I need to hear. So I'm going to sort of reflect on all the things that went through my mind in that moment and how in when you're faced, inevitably, we're all faced with those moments where we are at a point where we don't want to do the thing that we set out to do, how we can maybe overcome that. And if you've ever listened to my content or read my newsletter, and if you're interested, check out the link below. Sign on to my weekly newsletter. It's called Rock On, and it comes out every Monday. And it's a way to elevate your Mondays and also elevate your week. And it's a reflection of mine followed by a reflection for you and then something to build awareness in your life, and then something you can do to be kind for the week ahead. So there's always those three things: a reflection, an awareness activity, and a kindness opportunity. And it really changes the energy of your week and your day and your week if you do those things. And my hope is that it ripples that positive energy and that kindness in your world and then in the world all around us. So please consider signing up to that. Uh, and I'm going to use that same framework: reflection, awareness, and kindness, which, as you haven't spells rock. Um, and that's how you rock your life. I'm going to use that same framework to talk about how I confronted, my own feelings this morning. So we'll start with the R, which is reflection, and really reflection on what I always talk about reflecting on your why, or your purpose, or your aspirations. What are your bigger goals, and how do those tie into the person that you want to be? So when I talk about aspirations, I often talk about your this aspirational self-identity that you hold for yourself. And my daughter in that moment, she was saying, "Daddy, if you want to be successful, and what does success look like?" She went on to tell me, "If you want to help lots of people, which is what you say you want to do, then you have to show up." Hmm. So I needed to hear that. I needed to hear, why am I doing this? Why am I sitting here? I'm not sitting here to entertain myself. I may find it enjoyable to talk about these things, but really I'm hoping to reach more people with the fundamental message that we all have the power to take control of our health. We all have the ability to make change in our life and to change the trajectory of our life. And you may have um, history of health problems and family history of health problems, but everyone can do better. And everyone can do it in a way that actually feels good. They can do it in a way that's sustainable and enjoyable, and that's why we call it a lifestyle. And so she reminded me of that. She reminded me of my why just in that split moment. I heard that. I remember hearing it and then saying, remember, this was literally a couple hours ago. I remember hearing it and saying, I needed to hear that. That's exactly what I needed to hear in this moment. Okay. So that is for you to, if you have a situation like you set out to exercise 3 times a week. I don't know how many times I plan to exercise and then see something happens, something comes up, and so the plan gets sort of delayed. And then later in the day, I'm like, I just don't feel like it. I don't have the same energy that I would have had if I could have done it earlier. And your mind starts spinning, right? In those moments, you can remind yourself of why you exercise, you know, why you have decided to, and I remind myself of how my mood is improved, right? Oh, I'm going to feel so much better. I remind myself of how my sleep is improved. I'm going to sleep so well tonight. I don't even have to remind myself of those things because, like, my family will remind me. They'll be like, you're grumpy. Why don't you go? Why don't you go to the garage and work out? Because it does that, right? You get this natural, sustained boost in mood enhancing hormones and you feel better. So I remind myself of that. You're going to feel better because you don't feel like doing this right now. You may feel tired. You may feel apathetic, any number of things. You may feel anxious about something else. And the reality is, all those things get better, if you move your body. So I have to tell myself, to remind myself of that. Right? Okay, so and the A is awareness. And awareness is that actually arguably, I mean, it doesn't really work with my name, but arguably awareness has to come first, right? You have to realize that you're in this moment where you may or may not act because of how you're feeling, because of the kind of underlying feelings that you're having, a feeling of not wanting to act, right? So that's the first actually step, is that recognition of that. Once you have reflected on your why and you sort of recognized that you're at this, what in behavioral science called a choice point. So you're at a point where, okay, I could choose now, right? But really, to get to that choice point, to actually be a space where you can take conscious control and make a choice, requires awareness. So you sort of have to inject that. And when you're at a choice point, then you're faced with a decision. Do not, I was faced with a decision this morning. Do I just not do this? Because no one's gonna, at the end of the day, no one. My daughter's like, aren't people going to be disappointed? And I said, no one's sitting at home waiting for this, right? Maybe somebody is actually, but and I had to tell myself that too. I was like, oh, maybe there is somebody who looks forward to this. And so don't even assume anything. But also, you know, um, in that choice point, I started asking myself, well, what are my values here? Right. So that's what you're really doing in a choice point, is you're asking yourself, what do I value? And it goes back to what my daughter said. I want to help people. I want to get this message out. I want to grow my business. I want to reach more people and touch more lives. And how am I going to do that if I'm not actually doing? Right? So it's the doing that leads to all those things. And I tell you a really practical tip that I learned a few years ago to kind of overcome the inertia that you have in these moments. I didn't do it this morning, but I do it a lot when I'm trying to get out of bed. It's something I learned from Mel Robbins. Mel Robbins, famous motivational speaker, author, podcaster, and I think one of her first books, right, was the 5 second rule, where you basically count down from five. And as she tells it, like, she was watching a commercial and she saw a rocket ship like taking off and counting down. And the next morning, instead of staying in bed, she just in her head started counting down. And when she got to one, it was like liftoff. And there's really fascinating science, which she gets into. If you're interested, you should read the book. Um, but you know, on a basic level, you're kind of getting yourself out of your head. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You stop thinking about, all the reasons why you shouldn't be doing, because you can talk yourself out of so many things. You can talk yourself into things too. We'll get to that, but you can talk yourself out of so many things. So the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 really gets yourself out of your head. And then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Um, it's a doing. You're actually doing something. It's an action, right? You are counting, counting in your head, you can count out loud. And that momentum that it creates by actually doing something, it gets you out of your head, it gets you doing. And so and then you start going, right? And I think the the last piece is really kindness. I'm gonna talk a little bit about kindness. And when I talk about kindness in the Rock Your Life system and in my life, right, it really comes into play, I would say, in three big ways. Three, three big ways. Okay. Um, First, kindness is, I think, it starts with self compassion, right? So it starts with how you treat yourself, it starts with how you talk to yourself. So it starts with your self talk. It starts with how you then show up for yourself. It starts with your self care for yourself. All of these things, being kind to yourself, these are what lay the foundation for you to successfully make change. Okay. Because if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not minding over, how you sleep and the food you eat and how you manage stress, then all of these things will lead to a load of stress, what we call an allostatic load, stress that just sort of accumulates over time. And even the strongest amongst us can only bear that weight for so long. So kindness starts with ourselves. It also it also is a reminder, just as we show up for ourselves, how we show up for others, right? So when you when you support people in your life, it actually feels really good. First of all, feels really good. And then I'm Hindu, and I'm a big believer in karma. This idea that what you put out comes back to you. What you put out comes right back to you. So if I'm putting out love and support all around me, to the people in my life, to the people watching right now, to my patients, to my clients, then what I've learned is that is what comes back to me in my life. So kindness is foundational for living, I think, for living a good life. Okay. And then the last piece of this is kindness is how we make change. And so I like to talk about kind changes. A lot of times changes get framed as restrictions or punishments. Especially when we're like trying to think about how do I want to lose weight, or how do I want to exercise more, right? And so I got to force myself to do something I don't want to because it's good for me and it'll lead to the desired result. That is often the kind of, but that's not very kind, right? If I treated a friend that way, like, I'm going to force you to do certain things because I have an expectation and I want to get a desired result. Um, Usually that's not going to be well received. But we do that with ourselves all the time when we're thinking about healthy behaviors and new behaviors we want to adopt. We think about diets, when we think about, exercising or working out. All these things get framed in that way. And so, kindness really reminds you that we make changes, I think, when we're kind to ourselves, and we make what I call kind changes, the changes that are good for you, and they also feel good, and they move you in the direction of your goals. So a change that's good for you, like if I was talking about eating, um, I would say, what's a fruit that I love? I love pineapple. Okay. Well, I love kiwis. I don't really eat kiwis as much as I love them. So a kind change might be to, intentionally include kiwis in my weekly shopping list and eat a kiwi with my lunch every day, right? It sounds small, and it is. It's intentionally small. It's something that I'll enjoy, and it'll also be something that, as I do it, I'll notch a win. I'll be more success. I'll prove to myself that I can make change, and hopefully I'll also enjoy it, right? I enjoy kiwis, so I'm going to eat the kiwi. I'm going to feel good, and there are all sorts of health benefits to eating more fruit. Kiwis are loaded with antioxidants, vitamin C, for example. So in doing that, I haven't made like monumental change in my life by eating a kiwi every day. And I have proven to myself that I can make change. And I've done something that's actually good for me. So this is what I call a kind change. And kind changes can also be big changes. Bigger changes can be kind. They happen as a result of many small changes. I talk about this a lot. Many small kind changes that then build, where the kind change, the big change, the hard change actually is something that feels really good to you. It's something you really want to do. So I really love, and so many people, millions upon millions of people have read James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. And of course, he has this 2-minute rule, right? So the idea behind the 2-minute rule is you take any behavior Oh, no, it could be working out, it could be meal prepping, and you break it down. What are the first 2 minutes look like of that behavior? You can think about it for this live stream. I asked myself that actually, as I was then getting up and getting myself organized and thinking about this. I said, "Okay, what is the next step? Oh, I need to sit down and write down my thoughts. I need to have some sort of organization for this." Right? And so, um, maybe I can commit to just doing that, to just, like, grabbing a piece of paper and scratching down my thoughts. I'm not committing to doing the actual stream, which I'm actually doing right now with all of you, but I wasn't making that commitment in that moment. I was just committing to grabbing a piece of paper, sitting down, and writing down my thoughts. It's much like I talked about before, when you're counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's that momentum that you're building, right? So just spending 2 minutes, and I love the examples he'll give in the book. For example, if you're trying to work out, if you're trying to go to the gym regularly, then you might just start by driving to the gym, you know, if or just putting your workout clothes on, right? And usually what happens, I mean, first of all, those are foundational steps, because if you are going to go to the gym regularly, then you are going to have to drive there and walk in. So if you do that a few times, even if you don't work out, that first part will feel more natural and less daunting. And then that'll become more of a standard in your life. And I love how it's so small and so easy. And he emphasizes that, because that is really, I think, the sweet spot for where you're being really kind to yourself, is when you're saying to yourself, when I'm starting, when this is something new, I'm going to be really, really, really kind and gentle to myself and ask myself, what is a very, very easy way to start and do this? And so movement and exercise is a great example. I think we're coming up to the new year, and a lot of people are going to sign up for gyms and they're going to start working out. Maybe they haven't really been doing that. Um, and there's going to be a lot of things about that that maybe feel good, like you're getting over your fears and you're starting to do something. But the the devil's in the details, because if you're going to the gym, like I used to do this all the time on January 1st for the first couple weeks, and you're standing in line for a cardio machine or a treadmill, that you really don't enjoy doing that. And there's everything about the experience, all the big crowds and the nature of being there, that you just really don't enjoy, but you've gotten in your head that to be healthy and fit, you're supposed to go to the gym. Then after a couple weeks, you may realize that you really, something comes up, work gets busy, and if it feels like a chore or something that you're kind of forcing yourself to do, that's one of the first things that's going to go from your life. You're going to say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm done with this. And if on the other hand, you ask yourself, okay, what are some, this is how you would approach it differently, right? So what are some ways that I enjoy moving? Like, how does it feel good to move my body? Let me start with a place where there's this presumption that moving my body should feel good. Okay, like, and whatever it is I'm doing. And so I have this conversation a lot of times with clients and patients, and what comes out of that is, I really like being in the water. Like, my joints are stiff and painful, but when I'm in the water, it doesn't feel that way. And I've helped people explore finding a water aerobics class at the YMCA, or just um, learning the joy of doing a couple laps in a lap pool, in a community pool that they live by. So there are, I don't know how many times dancing comes out of that conversation. People share either that they actually have, like, learned some sort of professional type dancing, or they just love kind of moving their body to music. We all do. I think innately there's 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 some joy that we all experience from that. And so then we talk about how we can make that intentional. If you really love moving your body, how can you have a dance party with your kids uh, every evening and make it so fun and make it one song? Like the song is 3 4 minutes. Like you're starting with that, right? You're starting with that and you're doing it in a way that feels really good. The body feels good. The experience is fun. You're doing it with your kids and it changes the whole experience. You start looking forward to it. You're not then saying like, "Oh, I gotta do my exercise." You're saying, "I get to have my dance party with my kids." And that I have to do something to I get to do something. That's the if you ever feel like, a health behavior is something you have to do, catch yourself. Ask yourself, "Why do I have to do this? And how do I frame this as something I get to do?" Yeah. So, in the moment, if you don't feel like doing something, I'll bring it back to that. If you don't feel like doing something, ask yourself, "Okay, well, maybe I maybe I don't feel like working out for an hour today. Like that just seems really all the things going on in my life. Could I do 5 minutes? Could I get my clothes on and just or maybe I don't feel like maybe I'm a runner and I don't feel like going for a run today. But do I feel like I could get my clothes on and maybe go for a 20-minute walk or a 15-minute jog or whatever feels. Oftentimes you start, and this is kind of cliche. I know people say this a lot, but it's true. Like you often didn't just start and then you do more than you thought you were going to do because it's the feelings that betray us are the feelings of like not wanting to start. They're not the feelings of what it'll be like when we actually do the thing. Those are actually good feelings. 99.99 times out of 100, people will acknowledge that when I actually do the thing, I actually feel better. Usually, whatever it is we're avoiding, on some level, we're avoiding it and we might be doing something else to distract us because we don't want to deal with the thing we're avoiding or think about the thing we're avoiding. But usually when we do the thing we're avoiding or address the thing we're avoiding, we feel better, right? Maybe not like in thinking about it, but in actually doing it. Okay. All right. Well, I hope this was helpful for you. And I'm so glad that my daughter gave me that little pep talk. And this will inevitably be something um, that'll come up in your life. It comes up in my life all the time. And we can take conscious control of how we're feeling in the moment, can evaluate how we're feeling, and then when we have that choice point, we can remind ourselves of the reasons why we're doing something, and we can get ourselves out of our head into movement and do it in a way that feels good, that's kind. And if we do that for ourselves and we can help other people do that, like my daughter who was super kind to me for doing that for me this morning, then we're well on our way to living good lives. Thank you very much. And I will see you all back here next time. Take good care and have a wonderful rest of your week.